Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host Omar Khalid. But today is the 19th of September 2024 and these are the stories that we'll try to decipher during the course of our show. We'll begin with the day 348 of the Israeli war on Gaza, and of course we will concentrate on the pager attacks, should I say, or pager bombs, whose second wave also submerged Lebanon when and of course the number of injured and the number of killed now has increased. The fact is that this leads to a lot of speculation, a lot of questions as to the escalation of this conflict, this war, this genocide that has been for the moment relegated to the people of Palestine. But now it seems that there might be deliberate efforts made by Israel to engage other stakeholders or other regional players and escalate the war, maybe for political purposes, maybe for other purposes. That we'll try to understand during the course of our first segment rather, ladies and gentlemen. Second segment is the sham elections that have happened in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir Valley. The first phase has ended yesterday, and of course a lot of questions again on the efficacy or on the validity of these very elections. Amnesty International has taken out a very extensive report as far as the elections and the brutalities of the Indian government and the forces on the people are concerned, and the human rights abuses. This and more will be part of our second segment. Our third story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns Canada, that is further reducing the number of temporary residents in the country, which includes international students and foreign workers, because of the pressure that the Canadians are putting on the government as to different aspects of their economy and whatnot. Finally, we're going to talk about a giant robot prototype called Jinki Type 0 version 2, which is now taking over risky repairs on the railways in Japan, saving workers from their injuries and accidents that could happen, like being electrocuted. And this is a very interesting concept if properly implemented in the long term and of course properly. We'll begin now with our first segment that concerns Israel, Palestine, Lebanon, Yemen, Syria, and we have to add these because this is what Israel wants and ultimately Iran. We've been joined by two guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. In the studios, we've been joined by Jauhar Saleem Saab, former Foreign Secretary and current President of the IRS. Thank you very much, Jauhar Saab, for have joined us. And online, we've been joined by Dr. Haissam BOU-SAID. He's joining us from Geneva, from the IHRC at the CAO. He's a human, of course, we all know how he understands the whole perspective of it, and we would like to understand what the people across that part of the world are thinking about this current conflict. Let's begin with you, Jauhar Saab. Jauhar Saab, Lebanon's Health Minister Firas Ablad says in a press briefing in Beirut that at least 32 people have been killed, thousands injured in back-to-back coordinated explosions that happened the day before yesterday and yesterday. And there's a new initiative by the Lebanon's aviation industry also to ban passengers from carrying pagers and walkie-talkies on board any aircraft for fear of escalation of any such incidents in the future as well. There has been no proper formal comment from Israel as far as these incidents are concerned, but the Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says that Israeli troops, he's saying that to the Israeli troops that the center of gravity is moving northwards to the border of Lebanon, and he says that we are at the start of a new phase of this war. What does it show, despite the fact that they have not admitted to it, as far as the methodology to disrupt defense paradigm of a country or organization is concerned? This time it's Lebanon.
Yeah, what we see is the use of very sophisticated electronic devices, and this is not the first time that has happened. There's a long history of that. In fact, in 1972 Olympics, when 11 Israeli athletes were killed, so in reaction to that, Israel started killing the people they thought were involved in that. And one of them, their PLO representative in Paris at the time, Hamshari, was assassinated by planting of a bomb in his telephone in a very sophisticated operation. That was not a mobile phone, those were the regular phones. Then in 1996, the Yahya Ayash, who was called the engineer because he was the bomb making expert, he was assassinated by planting off a bomb in his cell phone, 30 gram. And that was a very, again, a very high-profile intelligence operation. So this type of what people call the sci-fi sort of, intelligence operated warfare, that has been a hallmark of Mossad over the years. Now this time what they've done, this is very indiscriminate, because in those cases, okay, they had a target and, and they wanted to assassinate that particular person. But in this case, just sort of, planting these bombs in thousands and thousands of devices, it tantamounts to indiscriminate killing, because you don't really know. What if a child is playing with the pager or a walkie-talkie, because in the second wave it was the walkie-talkies. Now Israelis have a long-standing policies that they don't comment on these sort of, these type of operations. But we know now that, as per media reports, there was an operation which was planned by Mossad in conjunction with Israeli Defense Forces. So the two organizations together, they did that. The company involved in that, as we know, this Gold Apollo, which was sort of, the company which, in the Taiwanese company, which was manufacturing these devices. Now they claimed that, okay, the devices were manufactured under license from them, but they had no role in sort of manufacturing of the devices.
Well, what's very interesting is also, Ambassador Jauhar, that they say that there's a certain Hungarian company, BAC, that they had licensed it to. BAC says it has not manufactured these pages. Then who has manufactured these pages?
Yeah, exactly. And what we know so far, it was, of course, manufactured somewhere in Europe, as per the media reports. But that is not important. What is important is that once Israelis, why did the Israelis decide to do that? Okay, on the one hand, it was in response to perhaps some of the rocket attacks which have been launched by Hezbollah in recent times, some of the missiles which have been thrown, projectiles in recent days. But you see, when they started their military offensive in Gaza, at that point, through a very intense diplomacy, the Israelis had managed to ensure that Hezbollah did not join that conflict at that particular time. But now it seems they are confident enough that they can take on Hezbollah as well. As you read yourself a statement whereby the defense minister says that now the center of gravity is shifting to the
northwards.
What is the reason for that? It is very clear that Netanyahu, who is totally besieged politically within Israel, not just in terms of loss of support, but also the cases against him in the courts. And a lot of analysts say that the day that he's out of power, he could probably be in jail. So he's trying to prolong his stay in power by all means possible.
At what cost?
Yeah,
what cost? That is the main question. Dr. Haissam, thank you very much to have joined us online. Dr. Haissam, a day after these thousands of pages explode, the figure is around 5,000 across Lebanon in this suspected Israeli espionage operation. There's another such wave of explosion, including walkie-talkies and laptops, that kills at least 20 people and injures 450. There are certain comments that have come, and I'd like your point of view on that. Hezbollah's executive council says the group will respond to the attacks with special punishment. Lebanon's foreign minister Abdullah Abu Habib warns the blatant assault on Lebanon's sovereignty and security could signal a wider war. The Israeli military says it's transferring the 98th Division, consisting of about 10,000 to 20,000 soldiers from Gaza to the northern border with Lebanon. United Nations Security Council is going to meet tomorrow to discuss these explosions in Lebanon. Volker Turk, who is the United Nations Human Rights Chief, condemns the fear and terror that has been unleashed by the attack and calls for an independent investigation. And finally, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman says the kingdom will not establish ties with Israel until a Palestinian state has been created. How do you view these developments? What's your take on them?
Yes, thank you very much. Let me start with the High Commissioner's statement that I personally and IHRC, we fully stand with him, with Mr. Volker Turk, on his appeal to all states that have great influence in the Middle East to take immediate measures to avert further widening of the current conflict in order to reduce daily horrors and suffering, as the protection of civilians must be the paramount priority. The International Human Rights Council also strongly joined High Commissioner on the must to have an independent and transparent investigation inquiry committee as to the circumstances of these mass explosions and those who ordered and carried out such an attack that must be held to account. Well, on the other hand, we know that from the beginning of the events, Hezbollah launched an equation after the October 7th, 2023 incident with a clear statement where he stated that to stop the war on Gaza means there is no bombing from the Lebanese side. So because the Lebanon is only a support front and not an open front. Now, what we believe that, and we are not too much deeply in politics because we are not too much likely to speak on political issues, but I will take it into the diplomacy manner and say that I believe that Israel has committed a strong error, a big error. They are not estimating exactly the weight of the whole situation in the region. Israel is really in a very delicate situation. They are trying to involve Hezbollah directly into a fight with them because the U.S. back up from the confrontation, if you want, with Hezbollah by withdrawing all their fleets from the Mediterranean. So I think that what happened in Lebanon these 2 days was to escalate the situation with Hezbollah so that they can guarantee the interference of the U.S. in this war, because they know that Hezbollah will be backed up by Iran, and this is their alibi always, that Iran is there, we have to fight Iran, and this is a slogan for the U.S. where they cannot bypass this such an issue, so they have to jump in. I believe this is what the Israeli Prime Minister is trying to do with his defense minister. They are trying to bring the foot of the U.S. into this conflict. They are not, as your guest said, they are not really prepared as Israel, because we have an experience in Lebanon in 2006 where Israel also had the same and similar war with Hezbollah. It lasted 33 days, where Israel couldn't penetrate Lebanon. On the contrary, the Hezbollah declared winning this war, where Israel declared defeated by some Lebanese factions. So I believe, and to wrap up this whole matter, that we are facing a very critical situation today. We should stand by the United Nations Secretary General call. We should stand as well by the High Commissioner for Human Rights calls, Mr. Volker, because I believe that we have an ongoing sessions, the Human Rights Council's 57th session in Geneva, and we have a special session on the 1st of October on Palestine and the region. And of course, I believe that we will come up with some serious resolutions on how to put pressure on Israel to stop the war.
All right. I'll come back to you with questions on the United Nations, but let's move back to the studios with Jauhar Saleem Saab. We all know how Reuters has taken out this whole extensive report on how it happened, how Mossad planted those at two different stages, in the manufacturing phase as well as in the transit phase. Well, for a couple of months they were at one port because they couldn't directly be supplied to Lebanon. Then of course comes the whole, as you yourself have pointed out, the role of the firm Gold Apollo that denies that it has manufactured AR924 model pages. Then of course the BAC also that now denies that it has not manufactured them, and it has been manufactured somewhere, but of course we don't know what this is going to be. But Taiwan's economy ministry said it is going to continue to assist the manufacture of the pagers used to attack Hezbollah members in Lebanon in the investigation. The ministry also said the manufacturer denied having a record of direct exports to Lebanon, and the pagers might have been modified after export. Now as a result of all of this, the Japanese firm ICOM says it has stopped productions of models of radios reportedly used in the Lebanon blast about 10 years ago. They have kind of clarified it is not, to say that it has not come from Japan. What is going to be the impact on the technology industry as a result of these attacks? Will there be a lack or a loss as far as these pager making companies or even the mobile making companies are concerned, because people will be very skeptical as to what could happen to them?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think these type of it's very interesting. Pager is not a new technology.
No, it's a very old one.
Exactly. It was a
pre-cell
phone technology which was used in the US.
But the fact is this, I just wanted to add to it. Today, if these are pagers, tomorrow it could be smartphones.
Exactly. And in the second waves, of course, and ironically, they were using pagers and walkie-talkies because they were trying to avoid cell phones, because cell phones, the Mossad had a record of
the software that they've been using.
Software and sort of to locate people, and also to, sometimes they planted bombs in cell phones as well, as in the case of Ayash. I think there would be definitely greater pressure on the tech companies everywhere in terms of the end users, in terms of, the tracking, so who's going to be the end user. And also in terms of the possibilities, they would try to prevent the possibilities of manipulation of their devices at some stage. Because here also, I think what the experts are saying is that it was probably not, of course, it was not in any way done by the companies themselves who were manufacturing. It was the human operatives, which somehow the Israelis, the Mossad, was able to sort of, penetrate. And they say even that they might have been able to penetrate into some of the people, some of the networks within Lebanon, because they knew how it was going to be distributed and all that. So at the end of the day, human intelligence component within any sort of sophisticated operation is very important. But so far as the tech companies are concerned, what can they do? They can be more careful, of course. Perhaps, and some of these technologies which are sort of, not really modern technologies, and which don't have very large markets.
But some of these technologies, to give the devil his due, are also working with the US and with Israel. We know how huge, social media organizations and software organizations are working directly with them, providing them with data as far as the users are concerned.
Yeah, we all know that. I mean, there have been scandals breaking out where many tech companies were in league with some intelligence agencies and providing information, and data these days it's so important. And it's knowledge is power, they say.
True.
And data has become power these days. And the tech companies, they do have access to a lot of data, and sometimes they sell it to marketing companies. There are other instances where they've provided it to certain intelligence operatives or agencies. So definitely, but to wrap it up, I think there would be greater pressure on the tech companies, because see, it's not a question of accountability. It's more a question of their marketing, there's the brand, because see, brand is everything.
Of course.
And the brand can be affected by these type of instances, because the element of trust
I see an implication, as at least an economic implication in the long run, not only for these pager companies, but also for the laptop manufacturers, because in the second wave, there have been laptops that have been affected by it as well. We'll go to our guest who's waiting for us patiently online, Dr. Haissam BOU-SAID, the International Human Rights Council Chief Administrative Officer to the United Nations in Geneva. My question is twofold, and it concerns the United Nations. We all know that the UNGA has overwhelmingly adopted a resolution calling for Israel to end the illegal occupation of the Palestinian territories within a year, a move that Palestine calls historic. 124-14 is the ratio by which it has been accepted. 43 countries have abstained. This, and of course then the reactions that have come from different countries. we have tomorrow's session as well, which is going to concentrate on what happened in Lebanon. And then we have, of course, the Jordanian foreign minister, Ayman Safadi, who accuses Israel of pushing the whole Middle East into the abyss of a regional war by maintaining a dangerous escalation on several fronts. I'm going to couple these, and I'm going to ask your response on all of those, from a diplomatic perspective, of course.
Yes, of course, we are looking forward to the 124 votes that was done yesterday at the United Nations Security Council, which has a good and strong indication towards the occupation of the Israelis in Gaza ever since. So this meeting was really a strong message to the international community, because it was also related to the import of goods from the Gaza Strip and from all these occupied territories in the West Bank, where Israelis have also their proper industries. So they are boycotting also these manufacturing goods in these areas. And also they are calling for stop selling weapons to Israel, in case these weapons could create a mass destruction or a mass killing, as Israel is involved in Gaza. And I believe that the situation in the Middle East, as the Ayman Safadi, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, expressed, it is true. We also back him and support him on his statement, because this is what Israel aims, is to drag all these superpowers into a conflict because of the personal interest of the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. Because if he stops today the war, tomorrow he's going to be in prison, and he knows that. There is some international warrants against him, and he knows as well that these warrants also could affect his personal security. So he has no interest to stop the war. He's going to continue until the U.S. election. And I believe after also the U.S. elections, until he gets a guarantee that he's going to be on the safe side, which is not going to happen, because the International Criminal Court cannot go back on its decision, where we have Judge Karim Khan, the prosecutor of the ICC, really insists on arresting Netanyahu and his Minister of Defense, along with the Al-Sinwar, because the three of them are wanted by the criminal court. So this whole scene, if you want, is not going to be solved in these couple of weeks. I am sure of that, unfortunately. And we could witness some escalations from the Israeli side, because this escalation comes into their interest and not in other interests. Hezbollah made it very clear that he is not going to escalate the situation once the Gaza is ended. The Gaza war is ended. I believe Netanyahu and his...
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Haissam BOU-SAID from the IHRC in Geneva, to have joined us, and thank you very much, Ambassador Jauhar Saleem Saab, to have joined us as well, as far as this is concerned, and will continue to bother you as far as this and other international issues is concerned. Thank you very much for your presence here in the studio, and thank you very much, Dr. Haissam, to have joined us as well. Let's come to our second story, and that concerns the sham elections in the illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir Valley under the Indian occupation. The first phase of that has ended yesterday, and there is a whole report by the Amnesty International also that has come forward as far as that is concerned. Now, there are also a lot of question marks, whether it be by the Kashmiri leaders or by the NGOs like Amnesty International, that point to the hegemonic designs of the BJP and the Indian forces and the current government, of which the BJP is a part and parcel, and of course their designs towards illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, whether it be changing the entire demography of the region, whether it be continuing with the brutalities through the different black laws that are currently prevalent in the area, or whether it be to deny any basic human right to the people in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. This is something that has been rampant and continues to gain momentum even even post the elections in India, and now these elections are happening in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. There are a lot of also fingers that are pointing towards the Modi government, saying that all is being orchestrated so that at least the cronies of Modi who are contesting these elections will be able to win these. What will be the repercussions? What is happening in the Indian Hill Valley? To discuss more on that, we've been joined by two guests in the studio. We've been joined by Maheen Shafeeq. Maheen is a regular in our studios and she's a regional affairs expert. Maheen, thank you very much to have joined us. And online, we've been joined by Shazia Malik. She's an international political analyst and we'll be talking to us shortly. Let's begin with Maheen. Maheen, Shabir Ahmed Shah, who's illegally detained and who belongs to the All Parties Hurriyat Conference, condemns India's violations of international laws in occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and he is in Tihar jail. He says that the Modi regime is blatantly disregarding international principles by holding so-called elections in the disputed territory after revoking its special status and depriving Kashmir of their basic political rights. He talks about genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes under international law, and systematic repression of dissent, demographic changes, prevention of Kashmir's right to self-determination. And of course, as all the other leaders are also doing, he is urging the United Nations to implement its resolutions on Jammu and Kashmir. How important is the role now of the United Nations under the current circumstances? We know the number of resolutions that are present in the United Nations as far as the IIOJK is concerned, so that the people of Kashmir could finally get justice that has been due since decades.
Firstly, thank you for having me on the show. These few weeks are very important for the future of Jammu and Kashmir and for the future of India's role in Jammu and Kashmir and the dispute that's been going on since the partition. All the aspects that are mentioned by the Hurriyat leader are true. All of these aspects have been verified by various independent reports, by reports of UNHCR, the imprisonment, and the fact that he himself is saying that all of this from the jail. And even we saw that there were Lok Sabha elections earlier. A lot of the candidates participated from jail and also won elections. So this kind of shows the status of, or the sentiments of the people, of the voters within Indian occupied Kashmir. Moving on to the aspect of UN, this is the longest outstanding issue on the UN Security Council agenda. There has been several resolutions by UN Security Council which has been unaddressed by India. This is also a violation of 4th Geneva Convention. It's also a violation of India's own constitution, because India is conducting these elections within the region that is occupied, and that is supposed to be an autonomous region. But after the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A, this region is no more holding the status that it used to, and India is being forcefully conducting these elections. And the role of UN in this regard has been limited in curtailing India's actions or India's illegal actions. And we have seen so far India is trying to project normalcy in the region, and they're saying
also by facts such as Modi addressing going to Kashmir and of course addressing election rallies in the Kashmir cricket stadium in Katra, which is a base camp of Vaishno Devi shrine. And if you just look at the amount of security that has been installed, because there is a fear, and there is a fear. Why? Because it is the Modi regime itself that has instilled that fear in the people of Kashmir, and they fear that this will have repercussion on Modi or his cronies or his government if a representative comes in the same area where this so-called human rights abuses are happening. Will the people of the Hill Valley protest and show the world the true face of Modi?
They have been protesting for a while now, but all the protests, wherever people go to protest, they have been put in jail. People are afraid now. Even in that Modi's campaign or Modi's address to the public in Srinagar, he states that people used to throw stones and now those stones are being used to build Kashmir or develop Kashmir. these people don't have stones in their hands anymore, because whenever they try to protest or whenever they try to showcase their sentiments to the government, to the Indian leadership, they have been put in jail. There are several draconian laws which put these people in jail without any trial. And this includes young people, students protesting for their rights. And these are the change makers. When change makers, political leaders, lawyers, journalists, all of these have been put in prison, who's going to protest? So that's how India is trying to curtail the right of self-determination and freedom within Kashmir.
Amnesty International takes out a report calling on the different examples and giving the examples of repression as far as the Kashmiris are concerned, and asks New Delhi to stop the detentions of dissenters. And of course, in the wake of all the elections that are being held, this gains even more prominence. Now, Amnesty refers to passports being revoked, creation of opaque no-flying list, denial of entry into India, arbitrary cancellations of overseas citizenship of India, status of those with Indian and non-Indian citizenship, speaking out against the repression. There is a deliberate attempt for all those who are trying to say the truth, who are trying to not hold out and highlight the reality of what is happening in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. That angers India, and that is why such a reaction is coming. I'd like to understand, statements by Amnesty such as these, do they have any effect on the India's repression that has been going on for years and years? And B, will the Amnesty International and other organizations move a step forward and maybe take their protest to international organizations?
Firstly, we have seen that people who are trying to protest, or independent people, even students who are trying to protest or speak up for their rights in Kashmir, they have one or other family member in jail already. So whenever these people speak, the atrocities that are committed with them in the jail hardens. So that makes it very difficult. But this is one of the way that people who hold the rigor and who hold the sentiments to talk about this issue fear the security of their loved ones who are in jail. So this is how these people, and we have seen several times that people have tried to come into Kashmir. There was Religious Freedom Act people, lawyers, they wanted to come into Kashmir, they wanted to come to India, but India denied their visas, and so India is not letting anybody from outside come inside, and people who are protesting, who are saying statements against the government are not being allowed outside of the country. Their passports are being revoked. They are being held in what all of the leaders are saying open air prison. So that's how they're trying to curtail the freedom of speech in the region.
With over 1 million Indian troops that are present in the Indian held valley, and of course the first phase ended, but there are 2 more phases that are going to take place in the coming days as well. What are going to be the after effects of such a phase of sham elections?
This is a very important, very critical question, especially given why is India willing to, or why is the BJP government willing to conduct these elections in the region? We have seen in the Jammu region there are 43 seats that are being contested, and majority of them have BJP candidates on them. And then in the Kashmir Valley, where the Muslim majority is more, 47 seats are being contested, out of which 19 are where BJP candidates are fielded. So we can see like more than 50% of this ratio is given to the BJP. What actually will change the outcome of the elections are the independent leaders. And that's what BJP is hoping to influence and get them on their side, and then that is how the BJP will continue its rule within the region. And we have seen the purpose of this election is only to extend New Delhi's rule within the region. We have seen
it is more or less an extension of what happened on the 5th of August 2019.
Yes. Yes, we have seen that the powers of the governor are limited and are more than the chief minister. Are more than the chief minister. And now, even if they elect a chief minister, the chief minister will have to go and beg Delhi for any amendments, especially the restoration of statehood.
So whichever government is formed even after these sham elections is going to be a dummy government.
And this is what a lot of analysts are saying.
Analysts are also condemning New Delhi's attempts to legitimize the occupation of the held valley through these staged elections. Kashmiris are demanding a United Nations sanctioned plebiscite, not manipulated polls, and the granting of voting rights to outsiders also, because we all know how they are trying to change the demography of the region by giving domicile to so many millions of people. This has also further eroded Kashmir's political status, sparking concerns about the future of the Indian held valley. What's your comment on all of this? What do you foresee?
This is not what any analyst or anybody is saying. This is what the people in Kashmir are saying. They want the UN sanctioned plebiscite within the region, which has been granted to them way back, but India has held this. So even if now after this election, and now how India is trying to change the demography of importing a lot of non-Kashmiris within the region, even if plebiscite takes place now, it can highly favor India. And this is all of these elections, all of these campaigns of so-called development, so-called normalcy in the region are just nuts and bolts to a bigger strategy, which is that even if plebiscite takes place, it favors India, and these people are trying to come back to the Indian region.
All right. We've also been joined by Shazia Malik, international political analyst. Thank you very much, Shazia, to have joined us. Kashmiri leaders have boycotted these sham elections, the first phase of which has ended yesterday, calling them a ploy to legitimize India's occupation. Kashmiris are also demanding their United Nations pledge rights, calling these elections a kind of an escape from the reality of the situation. Experts have also warned that the polls will further polarize the territory. These elections, a lot of people say, are a recipe for disaster, undermining the very fabric of Kashmir's identity. And of course, at the end of the day, the whole exercise is to legitimize the 2019 illegal abrogation. Will Modi succeed in legitimizing his 2019 abrogation?
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity, first of all, once again. I think there are a couple of parties, the main parties, they are participating in the elections, and the turnout has been also pretty okay in the first phase. And but of course, as you have rightly said, that there's a lot of anger amongst people. However, people are coming out and voting just to defeat BJP. So that is a huge thing. I mean, when they released engineer Shabir, and they thought that they are going to dent the main parties like National Conference and Congress that has formed an alliance over there. People are not really worried too much about it, because they thought that BJP has brought him as a proxy, but in fact, the way people have come out, and they do not want another PDP and BJP alliance in the valley, and the way BJP has, initiated all that anti-Muslim drive and whatever they have done over the years, it has, in fact, in my opinion, prompted people to come out and vote. Definitely, BJP would not be able to be in a dominant position. It's most probably going to be National Conference and Congress coming up again, and that is why Modi ji himself, who revoked Article 370, he himself has said now that they are going to restore statehood. So people are actually asking that if he had to do that once again and take a U-turn, because earlier they said that there's absolutely no question of bringing that in. So if now they are bringing it in once again, it means that they can see their defeat there.
All right. Thank you very much, Shazia, to have joined us. Coming back to you, Maheen, Pakistan's role has been paramount as far as highlighting and backing the Kashmiris diplomatically, politically and morally. We have former Foreign Secretary Shazia Malik saying that Pakistan and the international community agree that India has no authority to cancel the statehood of the held Jammu and Kashmir Valley. Even he says the Indian Supreme Court has also said that they will return the statehood and they cannot take it. Then we have also the Congress leaders like Pawan Khera, who on Monday has said that the Indian Congress National Conference Alliance is going to restore Jammu and Kashmir's right to statehood. Could that be a reality?
In this election, we have seen several of the candidates, just as the speaker before me mentioned, that there are several statements of restoring statehood and going back to normalcy. But the question still remains if this would actually happen, because like she mentioned, there have been several pledges before this regarding development, regarding end of militancy, but none of that has actually happened. The people in the Kashmir, in the valley, and also in Jammu are extremely unhappy, and this is one of the elections, one of their ways to protest.
And then there's the economic situation of the Hill Valley also that has been severely impacted.
We have seen that the businesses of Apple and Walnut, which is one of the major business of that region, has been heavily impacted because of the security situation within the region. Every other day there is a curfew, there is a security situation due to which these businesses cannot operate. We have seen even during G20, these G20 meetings where these businesses were heavily impacted. So any activity that goes on within Jammu and Kashmir, the business is definitely impacted. And on top of that, there is a lack of there's unemployment within the region,
that has increased radically,
which Modi says that he will grant employment to around 50,000 of the youth, but all of that still remains to be seen, which hopes are very little.
All of that remains a question mark, and all of this looks like a political ploy. Thank you very much, Maheen, Shafeeq, to have joined us and to have come all the way to the studios to discuss and of course give us your point of view as far as what is happening in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is concerned. There are two other phases. Let's see what happens in these two phases as well. Let's come to our last two stories very quickly. Canada has further tightened rules on temporary workers, on students. It's going to reduce study permits to 437,000 in the year 2025. Work permit eligibility has also been tightened for spouses of students, foreign workers, and economists and advocates criticize the lack of plan for migrant transition to permanent status as well. A lot of question marks because there is a pressure on the Canadian government as far as the current situation is concerned in the country. The announcement has come as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's Liberal government, that is trailing in the public opinion polls and coming off a major by-election loss this week, seeks to reduce the number of these residents, including international students and foreign workers in the country. This is, of course, coming under the pressure. Finally, giant robots could be the future of safer railway repairs in Japan. A giant robot called Jinki Type 0 version 2 has now started its operation, and it can be controlled by human operators through VR helmets, remote controls, and this giant robot has been built to reduce the risk of injury for workers during railway maintenance. Excellent initiative, and if they can manage to maintain robots like this and properly control it, who knows, maybe the future could be a safer one as far as Japanese railway industry is concerned, and maybe other railway industries as well. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new stories that pertain to us, you in Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.